welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so excited today because I have a great personality in the studio, someone I respect so much. Really
am.
glad to have you here.
I am privileged to be here. I watch your
Thanks,
show all the time, and it feels really good to be a part of it.
thanks for
Honestly,
honoring my invitation, sir.
you are most welcome.
Can you do me the privilege of introducing yourself?
All right. So, hi, my name is 𝘜𝘕𝘐𝘈𝘜𝘈. I am a medical doctor. I currently work in a research facility. I hail from Delta State. I currently live in Abuja. What else am I supposed to say? I grew up in Lagos, and I think that's pretty much most of the things.
Okay, and also you are a model. I actually wanted to hear that part too because that excites me about it.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, I'm also a professional model and a catwalk coach. I also do music professionally.
You have like
Yeah.
two albums now, singles.
I have two singles, two and a half, but two singles.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we are expecting more actually.
By the grace of God.
Okay. And actually, Ochem Michael here, he is actually the best graduating student of his set. So that's the more reason you should stay glued to this interview because you are going to gain value. Or he's a bundle of value, and also he has a lot that we can all learn from. Whether you're a student or even your professional life, just listening to this interview, and I promise you, you will not regret it at all. So you're welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. The first question I would like to ask you this moment is why did you choose medicine and surgery? Why not with the way your brain is hot? Why did you go for engineering or physics or mathematics? Why
Okay.
medicine
So,
and surgery?
honestly, the story is it's a story. Yeah,
Okay.
it's basically it's might not be as interesting as most people think, but it was actually my father's choice. Yeah.
Wow.
So yes,
Were you forced? Sorry.
not not no, not necessarily. Okay, so here's the thing. Here, I growing up from as far back as I can remember, my dad has always wanted me to be a doctor. You get so I've always just not been able to see past that. I always just okay, so I want to be a doctor. Why? Well, my dad wants to do better, and I didn't really think of any other thing that I wanted to do. Do you understand? I couldn't think of any other thing, and it just felt like it wasn't a bad idea. It wasn't a bad choice. So that's why I decided to. That's why I actually got into medical school in the first place. But then when I got into medical school, I began to see other reasons why I wanted to be there. I saw that it wasn't. It was divinely orchestrated, and it wasn't random. It was exactly where I should be. So it was really good. But getting into medicine for starters was actually entirely my dad.
Okay, that's interesting because I never thought that would be the story. I probably wanted to hear something like fashion or
Yeah.
or stuff like that.
Those things came up eventually as I went through the process,
Okay,
but the process of coming into medical school, into the medical space, was entirely just to make my father happy because he deserves to be happy. He's a good
wow,
man.
that's good.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you so much for that. So the next question is, did you actually plan to emerge as the best graduating student? Like, did you have a plan structured out when you entered medical school to emerge eventually as the best graduating student of your set, or it just something that happened by chance?
Okay, so okay, so this particular question is really interesting. I think it's very interesting because when I got into medical school, I didn't have like the best grades or anything. It was above average, but there were people who had better grades. So my plan was to just do my best. Basically, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to just come to medical school and do my best. Do you get? So I had made some prayers before then, and then I told God that okay, so I want to be known for academic excellence and all of these things. But then when I got into the space, there's the way medical school just shows you that breathe, calm down, relax, not the you know.
I
So I was like,
understand.
so I just wanted to do my best, and then I initially when I started studying, I started putting in the work. It was mostly because I was scared of failing. You get so it was mostly because I was scared of failing, and so as I was going through the process, I think after my second year, my third year, I realized that okay, I'm actually relatively good at this thing. Like this medical thing, it's actually something that I'm good at. So then I was like, okay, so let's just work towards it. It wasn't necessarily work towards doing valedictorian per se. It was just let's just work towards giving our best at every exam, and that's what I used to always do. I kept the vision at every exam. So this exam, I want to give my best to it. This exam, I want to give my best to it. It was it was going to accumulate into that, but that wasn't exactly the end game. And this is important because I'm going to add my very good friend, my closest friend actually. Her name is Dako Blessing. Hi, Dako. So she
She
actually
knows.
played a she played a very huge role in it. I remember that there were points where I'm like, being vegetarian is good, but I mean, I also want to do other things. And then she always tells me that don't just do it for yourself, do it for people who believe in you, people who are rooting for you. You get. So at every point where I was, at this point where I was like, do I still want to do all of this? It just rings in my head. I'm like, let's just push it. So yes, it wasn't by chance, but it wasn't exactly like a written out plan. It was just little decisions that accumulated into that particular thing.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, the third question uh, is what motivated you to actually like pull this great achievement of like what was your motivation, your biggest motivation?
Okay. So one thing I always know is that sometimes we only have one chance. We only have one shot. I will
Okay.
never be a medical student again. I mean, I could maybe do a master's program or do a residency program, all of those things. But as a medical student, I will never be at that point again in my career. So I always just told myself that I want to, at this point that I am, at this point that I am right now, I want to do my best. I want to give it 100%. So even when I am tired, even when I would never, I would tell myself that, okay, so this particular exam that is coming, I will never write it again. So whatever scores or whatever I'm able to learn from this particular process, that's all I'm going to have in this particular um, from this particular
Level
stage, yeah, from this
stage.
particular level, this is all I'm going to have. So he always just pushed me to make sure that I gave my best at every point because I knew that, I'm never going to have another chance at this.
Okay. Okay. This question now, I just want to ask you. I did not actually script it down, but I
Okay.
can remember like from I've read in your status where you said you even as early as primary school you already read books like 47 this is 47 48 laws of power.
Yeah.
Okay, and classical books like that.
Yeah.
So were you always a bookworm, and was that also part of what helped you when you got into medical school? And if yes, how did you become a bookworm?
Okay. Was I always a bookworm? I don't know, but I think I was at some point in my early life. I was a textbook nerd. Okay,
Okay.
so I was a nerd for most of my growing up, and I was always surrounded by books. Yeah, my dad was a journalist and a
Okay.
businessman. My mom is a nurse and a teacher, so I've always had books around, and I enjoy reading. I feel
Okay.
like reading is like it's when you read, especially maybe if you read maybe a novel, you basically become the actors. Do you get? It's better than watching it. Do you
Yeah,
understand?
it
It's
is.
better
You're
than watching it.
imagining the
Exactly. So
scenes.
we could read the same books and then we'll have different perspectives. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that is very liberating. So I read books a lot. I do it to relax. I do it to enjoy myself. And I've always had books around, so it was easy to get drawn into books.
It might be a bit emotional. It might actually bring back some old memories.
Yeah.
Okay, the question is, it is a common knowledge to the Yamside community
Mhm.
that your hard-earned position was erroneously given to someone else. So how did you cope during the time interval before your rightful position was acknowledged and restored back? And first of all, how did you even take it that day? Because I know you had already expected it.
Okay, so well, okay, yeah. So honestly, it was difficult.
Okay.
I'm just gonna be factual. It was difficult. I'm going to start from the day itself. It was sort of a shock, and you know, at that particular point, I think I was one of the first people to start up and give an ovation to the person who was giving to. And in my head, I was just like calculating, like what happened.
Yeah, how did it
Do you
happen?
get? So, and then I was really confused, and
Mm,
I was really, but then at that point, it wasn't my moment, so I had to acknowledge, the moment of that individual. And I remember that after that same day, after doing the ceremony, immediately we
mm.
left the location. A lot of people came up to me, and then they were all like, this, and at that point, I really just wanted to just enjoy the rest of my induction and just like I it is somewhere like where I compartmentalize a lot. So I was just like, okay, so put this in a box and lock it. Let's enjoy induction. Let's take beautiful pictures. Let's laugh. Like my mom was there. Let's just enjoy the moment, which I tried to do. And then after that, when you go to bed and then it creeps up back on you, and then it was difficult. I remember that I was depressed for a long time, for a couple of months. I was really depressed. I couldn't see past it. It was the first thing that I thought about when I woke up, and the last thing that came to my mind before I go to bed. I was really just in this weird circles, and I tried to talk to people and like a couple of my friends and everything, and everybody just tried to encourage me and everything, but it just wasn't working. And I spoke to my younger brother, who is surprisingly very wise, and then we had a very long conversation. I had to do some healing process and everything because I didn't want to start my career. That's my house job, and on that note, because of how sad I was. But it was a very difficult period for me, and it taught me a lot of life lessons. It taught me a lot of life lessons. But there are things that I read somewhere that one day the worst thing, the thing you fear the most will happen, and then after it happens, you would survive it, and then you begin to really live. And that happened to me because I survived it, and then it changed my perspective on a lot of things. And I'm not glad that it happened, but I'm grateful that I was able to go through that process and see the silver linings.
Okay. So, did that experience in any way did it produce resentment against the people that did this to you, and also did it change your perspective about giving your best at any point, not post the whole time or during that period, not after the whole thing was resolved, during that period, were there times you actually regretted giving your best, and did it affect your perspective about giving your best at any time?
Okay, so first of all, did it produce resentment?
Mhm.
Well, I think resentment is a very strong word, but I did have some strong emotions, not just towards the situation, but also towards certain individuals, the way they handled the situation. Because I remember a couple of people reached out to me, and I reached out to a couple of people, and some of them, handled it. You know, they said certain things, but it was a lot of emotions I had to go through. Now, I it was really difficult. It was really really difficult for me, honestly. Did it change my which that and about it affecting my desire to be excellent? I think that was why I had to take that period to heal before I started my house job. I think I it took about 3 months post induction before I started my house job, and
Okay.
that was because I really wanted to have gotten over this whole thing, because I knew that if I dived right in with the way I was feeling and all those emotions, I would definitely it would have affected me. So but then I was able to heal before I started. And I'm glad that I did, because I was able to get to a point where I realized that excellence is excellence, whether it's rewarded, whether it's seen, whether it's celebrated. Excellence is excellent. It always just is what it's tangible. It's what it is. Do you get?
Okay.
So whether you get rewarded for it or you get acknowledged for it, it doesn't change the fact that it is what it is. Yeah.
Okay. And the fact that who you become too in the process, nobody
Yeah.
can take that away from
Yes.
you.
Yes. Exactly. Like what you know is what you know.
Competence.
I agree.
All right, thank you so much. The
Thank you
next
so much.
question is you pioneered the Yamsa Sages competition group, which represented the University of Abuja College of Health Sciences, and emerged overall best in national competitions. How were you able to actually do this while being a student?
Okay, so I want to start by saying I'm really grateful to the then president, my very good friend, Chinecherem Bostokokafo. He's a wonderful person. So before then, I started representing my school in quiz competitions for my second year. So I had been going for competitions long before, that happened, and we had pretty good showings. So when he became president, we had a conversation, and then he told me about this and what he wanted, like an academic group, of scholars and everything. And then we just had a very long conversation. I think it was one evening, and then we had a very long conversation, and we fine tuned it into what we wanted it to be like, something that I could work with. And then I had monopoly. I had monopoly of choosing who I wanted to work with and all of these things. And so I had a schematic. diagram in my head. This is what I wanted us to do. This is what I wanted us to achieve, and everything. And we worked towards it. We worked toward
Okay.
it,
Mm.
and we had a lot of we had trainings, we had rehearsals, and I want to also bring up at this point that in as much as at the competition it was just a select few of us, there were a lot of people who worked behind the scene because it was an entire team. So there were a lot of people who worked behind the scene and helped us. We had to practice with them. We had to rehearse competing against each other. So there were a lot of people who worked behind the scene, and so it was a lot of practice. And honestly, God really helped us. God really helped. I remember that the day, because we did a lot of competitions. We actually participated in a lot of competitions. I actually won a lot of competitions. I think all through every competition we participated that period we won. So I think the most notable, which is when we won the national quiz competition, that was when I remember that the finals was supposed to be at Open State, Olabisi Onabanjo University. So I remember it was supposed to be there, and it was tricky because the competition was supposed to be on a Saturday, and I was starting my professional exam on the Monday.
Mm.
So to travel all across country was a very tricky decision. And initially I was like I didn't want to go, and then I spoke to a couple of people, and then they all encouraged me too. So I also want to bring up this point. My very good friend, who I went to commission with, David Salau, we also volunteered to go with us. So we had to, because someone pulled out last minute. So we had to travel all the way. We traveled all the way to Ogun State. We did the competition, had to travel back. And when I even got back, I felt ill, all of these things. And then we had to write the exams and everything. And I'm really just grateful. It was a lot of work. And to see the result of your work, it's the best feeling.
Okay.
So yes, I'm honestly very grateful.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Most people they are not even aware of most of these things. So I just want you to talk about most of the competitions you won, and because I heard there was even one that you won, and the people that came second place were angry about the fact that as if it was not a transparent competition.
Yeah,
So
honestly. Okay, so where do I even start from? I want to start by saying that the truth is that while the school you go to has an influence on the kind of your level of competence and product excellence, it's not the only variability. Yes, there's not the only factor. There are a lot of other factors, and so I don't like to think that. I know that my school is actually relatively nascent. I mean, I was fourth set, so we're still relatively young, but I think that we've done really well. We've honestly done really well, and off the top of my head, I can't remember the names, but they're actually in records, and maybe I would probably send it to you later. Maybe just list them out.
okay.
Yeah. So, but like we actually participated. The good part of it was that because the members of the team, it wasn't just a set of people. So we tried to rotate it around. So this competition will be this person and this person, next competition this person and this person. So we actually had like a series of competitions that period. I think there were about four. I think about four of them. We had the northern zone, we had central zone, we had two national competitions. So and we actually cleared across board. So it was a really good year. It was a really beautiful record. And yes, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So the next question is, what strategies did you employ in studying while you were in school?
Okay, so I want to start by saying that there are different ways of studying, and that because it worked for me, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to adopt it. It should be personal. It should be what works for you. You should work well. But personally, okay, so I read a lot. I read a whole lot.
Yeah, anyone that knows you can attest to that fact.
Yeah, so I enjoy reading. So yeah, so some things that I did were I start early. I start really early. I remember that before my obstetrics and gynecology posting, I had actually finished the textbook before the posting.
Which of the
So
textbook did you use now? The 10 teachers or Agbola?
the 10 teachers, yeah. So
Okay.
I used 10 teachers, and there are two of them. So I read both of them before I even started the postings. So I try to start early. I believe that if you start early, you have enough time to master the subject matter. So you're not just running after the work; you're actually ahead of the work.
Mm,
So that's something I did, and that's universal. Everybody works for everybody. Start early. So
okay.
I start early, and I have a plan. So I want to go through textbooks, and I want to go through slides. I think one thing that was missing, especially among the younger generation, is that most people don't like to read textbooks, and it's very weird because how do you get a grasp of the subject matter? So I don't just rely solely on lecture notes and
Okay.
or slides. I make sure I read through the textbooks. So and the only way to finish the textbook is to start early. So I make sure that I start early, and then when the exam is drawing close, and then I narrow it down to the slides and lecture notes so that by the time I've mastered, at least I have a very good grasp from textbook. I make jottings. I do a lot of jottings. So I've made jottings. I read through the textbook, and then I try to read. Also, I feel like the brain is like a basket where I put stuff, certain things fall out, then you have to put again. So I try to read things over and over again. I remember that there are certain books there's certain textbooks I read multiple times. You know, so and the more you read them, the better you remember, the better you understand them. So I do that also, and then I also started dabbling into other visuals towards the end of my medical school. Yeah, I started dabbling into other visuals, so I started watching videos and all of these things, and then I also had a study group. Yeah, so technically we're not like the usual study books that study together. What we do is that we go to our study location together, then everybody studies individually, and then we come together and maybe discuss towards the end. Especially if we have a clinical examination coming, so we'll examine each other, but then everybody studies individually because I like to study by myself. It can be very distracting for me when we're having conversations. So yeah, I did a lot of that too, and I think that's those things really worked for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to know about your study group. Is it when you are close to exam period that you normally go to read together, or from even when you start your early reading, that your study group
No, actually, we start really early. We start
together?
really early together. We start really early together, and then we just go. We start, and then we read together, and then. So,
Okay.
and it was important because there are days that I'm feeling down, or I'm feeling tired, or and then just like, yo, what's up? We're in class. Where you at? And I'm like, oh, I'm coming. So even when you don't want to go, you have to go because they're there,
Yeah.
and it goes both ways.
Okay. And I think this will lead us to the next question, which says, on the days that the motivation wasn't really there, how did you cope with consistency?
I had first of all, I had wonderful people around me, and I that was
Friends
my
and
story.
kind of.
They nobody turned their back on me. My friends are my world, my family are my rock. Honestly, like days when I felt down, I had friends to remind me who I was and how much of a beacon of hope and light and strength I was, not just to myself, not just to those people around me, but to even other people who I probably didn't even know how much of a reference point I was becoming. So it days where I felt down, I had people to remind me of the records that okay, so look at how far you've come, look at how much you've done. This is not the time to stop. You get so like this is not time to stop, just powering, we're almost there, just moving. And I had my study groups, I had my family, my siblings, my parents, they're always like checking in, yo, what's up? If you're okay, is there anything we can do to help? It was really, and then there were periods where I needed to take breaks because I just felt very overwhelmed. I always had where to go to, I always had places to be at, it was really good. It was really good.
As someone who held various leadership positions in Fellowship of Christian Students and Christian and Medical Dental Association, what impact did your faith play in your achievements as an undergraduate?
God is important. Look at me. God is important. Okay, so honestly, my face was really some days was all I had. It was all I had. One thing I always know is that you can put in all the work, and then there are people who put in all the work, who put in more work than I do, and they don't get results. Do you get? So I always just know that if you put in the work and you get results, it means that God helped you. So I always make sure that before I start postings, I pray about them. Before every exams, I have the spirit where I fast and I pray about them. I'm a very spiritual person. So honestly, I there are days that my faith was all I had, and it was good to be surrounded by people with like minds and like faith and like perspective. So there were days that I needed someone to hold hands with and just pray about a particular examination. And I had a lot of positions. I had people who were dependent on me to be able to, help them through this process. So it was important to make sure that they understood that it wasn't all by myself. There was a God who was helping me, dotting my I's and crossing my T's.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And the next question is, which teacher had the most impact on you, and what will you always remember them for?
Okay. I'm trying to like really scan all through. You're talking to medical school, right?
Yeah, during your undergrad period.
Okay, so I'm really trying to like just run all through because there's so many of them. There's so many of them who played many very vital, pivotal roles in my career, and I'm going to. Okay, I don't need to not mention just one, maybe just a very few, very few. I'll try to
Okay.
keep it very few. I think one of them is Dr. Anadipo. Dr. Anadipo was my physiology lecturer, and she was spectacular. Like she made me understand the beauty in being academically sound, and it was good. Dr. Nadipo, Dr. Joy, like they were very pivotal, especially in my clinical years. And then there was also Dr. Okolo, who most people had a lot of emotions, but for me, it showed me what true excellence was. You don't have to like it, but you have to attest that it's there. You can say I don't like this person, but you cannot deny the fact that they were good. Do you get? So, and seeing that made me realize that okay, academics speaks for itself. Do you understand? Then there are also some of my other lecturers like Dr. Tyre. Dr. Tyre was amazing. He went out of his way multiple times to ensure it showed me that you're not an excellent teacher if your students don't know what they're learning. Dr. Tyro, Dr. Anadobe, they were amazing. Dr. Solomon, honestly. And then there was also Dr. Bandi. Dr. Bandi really helped me a lot on a personal level because I realized that you can choose to be joyful. It's your own. It's a decision. It's a decision. It's a conscious decision you have to make. And then of course my mentor and role model, Dr. Oji, Dr. DK Oji is the best person in the world. I'm sorry. So yeah, I like love, and there's so many others that I really can mention. All my lecturers were amazing. Dr. Ekop, all of them really really helped me.
So, what was your favorite course or department, or even faculty?
Okay. Favorite course would have to
Should
be
I guess?
yes.
Physiology.
Yeah, definitely. Favorite course was definitely physiology, and I think besides the fact that lectures were amazing, I also think that I actually do have a knack for it. Like I like
Okay.
it. Yeah, I loved it, and I also funny enough, I actually love surgery and internal medicine. I
Mhm.
love surgery and I love internal medicine, and it's very weird for me when I tell people that, and they're like, "You don't look like someone would like surgery." I'm like, why? I legitimately had that conversation today with a colleague of mine at work, a very senior colleague who I respect very much. And then she was telling me how you just look like someone who likes to find details, internal medicine, internal medicine. I was like, well, I do love internal medicine and I might specialize in internal medicine, but I also do enjoy surgery. I I like it. So yeah,
Okay.
I think if I had to pick a top three, I think it would be those three.
Okay. Physiology,
Surgery,
surgery,
internal
internal
medicine.
medicine. All
Yeah.
right. While in school,
Yeah.
apart from books and the academic world, what was your favorite extracurricular activity to do?
Modeling. Enjoyed, or I still enjoy. I enjoy the word
In
modeling.
quotes, while being an undergraduate during your undergrad period.
Yeah, I actually started modeling as a student. I started modeling in my fourth year.
Wow.
So yes, I
The
enjoy.
hardest year in med school.
Well, I mean, you have to start some point. So
Mm,
I actually started modeling in my fourth year, and it was something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy the freedom. It's like the opposite of being in medical school because in medical school there's a pattern you have to follow. Modeling doesn't have that. Modeling, you derive what you want. You create whatever it is. So, and I liked that freedom that it produced. And then I also love music. Music is like second nature to me. So I could be walking down. Even my patients, they make comments about it, like, "Doctor, you're always singing." I'm like, "Yeah, sorry."
The next question is a bit personal, and it is: what goals do you have for your career, and where do you see yourself? It's looking like an interview question. It's actually an interview.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Okay, so I don't want to jinx it,
Okay.
but I have plans that I'm putting in place. I believe in what they call delayed gratification. I believe that if you can put in the work right now, you'd for future results, it's usually worth it. So while I'm not going to state particularly what my plans are, but for my goals, I intend to be in the forefront of the medical profession, where the movers and shakers are, and contribute my bits to the body of knowledge that is available. That's basically summarizes it. Like I just want to contribute my bit. I know that I have a lot to contribute, and it's what I want to do. That's my end game. So I do have plans put in place, which I might not be very comfortable sharing right now. But I mean, fingers crossed, and your mind will blown.
Knowing what you know right now, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self entering university for the first time? What would you have done differently, given a second chance?
What I've done differently. Honestly, okay, first of all, I live life trying to have no regrets. But what I have done differently, hmm, I mean, I would have still kept the same friends. I would have probably just put a little less pressure on myself. You get so there were a lot of times I put a lot of pressure on myself. You know, I sometimes I still do that. A lot of pressure on myself. So I would just ask myself to breathe. The world is still going to be here tomorrow. You know, you can chill out a little bit, and I will try to make more memories. And it's very bad. It's a life is a trade off. Every time you're giving up something for something, you just have to know what you're giving up and what you're gaining, and be fine with it. So I would have probably made a little bit more memories. You know, there were a lot of things that I didn't go for. And thinking back, I'm like, maybe I should have. But then at the end of the day, the reason I didn't go for them was worth it. So it was a trade off. I would have just probably told myself that just relax. The world is still gonna be here tomorrow. You're gonna be fine.
So far, how has been life after school? It's been a couple of years now since you graduated. Has it been according to your expectations, or it's entirely a whole different world out there?
Life after school. Okay, so I had envisioned a certain kind of path, but then I've realized that sometimes the path is not as defined as we think it is.
Okay.
You get so what I so far it has been wonderful. Like I've had more. It's been better than I thought it would be, but it's
Okay.
been a different path. You get so I thought it was gonna go this direction, but then it didn't go this direction. It went this direction, and this direction has turned out to be better than what I thought it was going to be. I've done some really good work. I've done my internship program. I'm running up my compulsory service year, and in between I've worked with certain people or places that I didn't think I would I've gotten into certain spaces. So I've realized that I've learned to or I'm learning to enjoy the journey, focus less on the destination and more on the journey. So where I am right now, am I making progress? And as long as I'm making progress, I think that's what's important. So it's been different, but it's been good.
Okay. Talking about life after school,
Yeah.
how do you manage to combine medicine and every other thing you do with modeling?
Okay. Honestly, it's I can say that it's been God. God has really helped me a lot. And another thing that has really played some role is to have my priorities.
Okay.
You get it? So because I'm a medical doctor, and being a medical doctor means that I have certain responsibilities, and when I don't do my job, it's not just some paper that doesn't get delivered. It's a patient that doesn't get medications or doesn't get seen. So it's important. I learned that very early in my career. So you have to do your job. You have to make sure that you're doing your job. So I have my priorities straight. I make sure that I do my medical job correctly, and then I plan myself. You get so most of the time, most jobs I get, most modeling gigs I get, it's usually not at the moment notice. Usually not a come there, we have this job for you. It's usually get an email maybe like a couple of weeks before, or most of the time a couple of weeks before. Very few times a couple of days, most of the times a couple of weeks before, and then you have enough time to plan yourself. So if I'm going to go for this gig, it means that someone has to see my patient, someone has to be at my workplace. So I make adequate planning for that. So I just think that at the end of the day, it's about planning and discipline. So if you put in enough focus, basically you're chasing two careers, and both careers are very competitive. I can tell you that. The one thing modeling is very easy, but it's very competitive, and it's not as easy as people think it is. You have to rehearse, you have to work, you have to do this, you have to do that, and then every time you're presenting yourself, you have to present yourself in the very best form, whether you just did the call 2 nights ago. So I make sure that I have that discipline, and I have that I work hard. I try to work hard as hard as I can, and then just prioritize scale of preference. This is what's important right now. This is what can go, and that's what I do. There are times that I get certain jobs and I like, okay, so I'm sorry, I can't do this right now. I'm in a very demanding department, or I have to be at work. I have something I'm monitoring right now. I can just leave work and do this. So there are times I have to give up certain jobs. But then at the end of the day, I think that I'm doing relatively well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Given that you're a model, and the way you talk about modeling, I don't see you doing it as a side gig. It's something that is actually like also a major part of your life.
Yeah.
How is it influencing your practice of medicine? And also, how does it like how does it portray you to people? Because most people that don't know who you are, they might even think you are this unserious doctor. They don't know that this is actually like one of the best in the system. It will take someone that knows you to actually judge you rightly. So how do you also cope with that, with what people think about what you're doing, family, friends, and even strangers?
Well, honestly, it's a very long question. I'm trying to remember all parts of it. But yes, okay, so I'm gonna try to answer it to the best of my knowledge. So how it affects my profession? I think it makes me better
Okay.
for my relationship with my patients and people generally because prior to when I started modeling, I usually just saw life from this lens, very serious lens. This is how people should think. This is how people think. This is how people are. And then I started modeling, and it was the exact opposite. And then I started people talk. I'm like, you know, so and then it helped me to see the entire picture of what the average person out there thinks or how the person is. So being in that space sort of helps me to understand when someone comes to tell you that they are having acne problem, and then in your head you're like, I have patients with heart failure, please can you move? But then it's important to
To,
that person. Do you get?
to tell me
So
if they will eat tomorrow.
exactly, so I get to understand that, and I understand, and then somehow it keeps me in quote now in vogue. Like I understand most common slangs because that's what people say, like "por," stuff like that. So it gives me with trends because modeling is all about trends.
Yeah.
So it sort of keeps me knowledgeable about these things that I typically wouldn't have idea about,
Mm.
and then it also helps my fashion too. Helps me look better and stuff like that. So, but then that's personal. Now, when it comes to people, this has been it's something that I it was when it first started, it was very new feeling because I've never been looked as incompetent my whole life. But then I started modeling, and I remember that when I just started it out, there was this person who I respected a lot, and then he sent me a message, and it was like, I see that you're no longer interested in being an iFlying student, and it really hit me. I never responded to that message,
Wow. A
but
lecturer?
then I was actually a senior
Okay.
colleague.
Okay.
So and then I looked at the message. It broke my heart. It really broke my heart. And because so that's how I started my modeling career. And there are periods it happens. So honestly, I'm not kidding. Like and that's how I started. So progressing through the this different stage of my career, I've had people always do that, and I get talks like, "So, not doctor," and I'm like, "Yes, it is. Any problem?" So and it's always like when
And he's
people
not just a doctor, he's a first class doctor.
so honestly, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I remember that I went to I was my CDS. That's where I my community development scheme for my
Mm.
NYC. And then there was this time that I was discussing with somebody, and then the person made a comment, and then I was like, the person now said, if to say the focus like that for school, if for graduate as best graduate students, and then I was like, I actually graduated as best graduate student, and then the person was like, yeah, please, and I was like, for real, and I showed him my certificate, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
my god, and it showed everybody in the meeting, and everybody was like, it,
Really?
it's always like that. Everybody always does this whole. It's usually a thing of, this person is, and then they're like, oh, he's a doctor. Like, hey, probably struggled to school. Or he stumbled through medical school. And then the fact is validated. Like, wait, how? And I had somebody who said, oh, my mistake, where your class, no book. I've had situations like that, and I just
So did you when if I were there, I would have told them that you actually competed against medical students from UI
literally
and
every
Uniben
university in
and
Nigeria
talk to them.
multiple times.
Yeah, not
So
once, so that they say it's by luck.
so honestly, like I felt like
Mm.
I've gotten used to it. It's every time it happens, I just remind myself that it's not important. People who should know. Do you get? So if you don't know that I am a competent person, that means you don't know me enough.
Mm.
And if you don't know me enough, then your opinion about me shouldn't really matter.
Mm.
Do you get? Because even when I remember that when I started my when I go to medical spaces sometimes, And then I met somebody, and the person was like, "Oh, when I saw you, I was like, ah, oh, this what's up, doctor," you know. And then you started talking. I was like, "Oh my god, he's smart." So it was like, and when the person said that to me, I'm like, "Yeah, that
You should
happens.
have just kept it in
That
his mind. You shouldn't
that
even
that happens every time." So I'm used to it. I even
Wow.
sometimes patients do the same thing. I have patients who say who meet me and they're like, "I want to see a real doctor," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's
Wow.
me." I
Wow.
did years. I did 7 years in medical school to be that. So what's your complaint? Talk to me. So I have that. I have people who say, it happens. But then I understand that the goal is not to look serious, it's to be serious. The goal is not
Mm.
to look efficient, it's to be efficient.
Efficient.
And every time I start talking, or every time
Mm.
I start doing, they respect it.
All
And
right.
that's what's important.
So the next question is, with all of these accomplishments, with all of these you are, because you've actually worked hard to be where you are today. You've worked hard to earn everything you have today in terms of in the space of the medical and even the modeling space too. Because I remember when you started, then comparing it to where you are right now, there has been a lot of growth. So how do you manage to remain humble? How do you manage to like not let it get into your head? Because you are one very humble person I know, and I have the privilege of being your status. Most times, if I don't know you, I would think that what word should I use now? I think that you are just up for the cruise and nothing more. But actually, there is a lot going on in your life, and you are not just pushing out for everybody to know that you are this one big person or doing so many great things. You just want to be on the ground. Like, so how do you manage to do that?
Honestly, I understand that all that I am is, of course, messy. So why do I need to boast? That's one. And then secondly, I've been in spaces and in places with people who have done a lot more, and I've realized that the most humble people are the biggest people. The person making the most noise are usually just done one or two things. But people that are really the movers and the shakers, they work without security. They enter places and they sit down at the back and
Mm,
they listen to you when you talk and they
mm,
make out time for the little things. So I've,
mm,
I've realized that I, I I mean I have done a couple of things, but there's so much left to be done. So I'm not even at the point where I remember I had this discussion with my father recently, and then he told me how he was really proud of all I have done, but that it's it should be forget it should be forgotten when people remember what I will do. Do you get?
mm,
So in the next 30, 40 years, these things should be like, because there are certain things in my life which was a big deal before this point in my life. I graduated valedictorian in primary school. I graduated in secondary school. I wrote my exams, my
Wayek.
yeah, like a class ahead. I became head prefect in SS1. Like a lot of things that in my head were really big deals. But now when I'm writing my CV, they are basically maybe one line. You know, so my father let me understand that these things, as wonderful as they are, they should be one line because I should plan something that can fill a book. Do you get? So I just and the only way to go up is to be down. If you're already up, then the only way is down. So if you want to go up, and then also learn that humility draws people to you. Do you understand? There's so much going on in the head of people, and it draws people to you. You can learn from them. You can learn. I hang out with people that are my junior colleagues a lot, and I realized that. And then nobody likes to practice, and so. And honestly, I just thought of who I am.
Mm.
Yeah.
And actually your impact is actually being felt. For instance, yesterday I was going through this statuses. I don't know if I pronounced it right. Is it statuses or statuses, whatever? Just take the correct one. I saw on his WhatsApp status, he wrote that what really helped him during his years in clinical not just clinical what really helped him during his years in medical school was the fact that he modeled after your steps, and that he took all the steps he took apart from the fellowship side. So like you've really done a lot of work and you are phenomenal, and also you are a model. So it's actually an honor to have you here today, and I'm really like grateful that you honored my invitation. And I know that a lot of people personally, I've learned a lot just from speaking with you right now. I've learned a lot, and I know a lot of people watching this interview also learn a lot from all you've said. So thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you, and God bless you too. It
And
was really a privilege being here. I enjoyed our conversation and I had a really good
I
time.
hope I didn't ask too many questions
No,
though.
it was fine. It was fine. I think
Okay.
it was okay. Thank
Okay.
you so much. I'm really grateful. I'm
But
happy.
before we exit the studio, I have one more question. I
Yeah.
know most people will
Okay.
want to hear it.
Don't ask if I'm getting married.
No, obviously you
Oh
should. I
my
believe
god.
you will.
Yeah.
But that's not even the question.
Oh, okay, thank God. Because that's the question everybody's asking me right now. When are you getting married? No, no.
No, I wouldn't ask that now.
So much pressure.
Most people may not know. They may think you're a very advanced person. You're actually probably in your mid 20.
Yeah,
I don't
actually.
want to go all out, but then a lot of these achievements, most people even in their 30s have not. Let me not brag too much, but I really like. I I am proud of him, and also the fact that he has set a lot of examples. So it's good to put out good things out there. In the media, you see a lot of people talking on the bad stuff,
Yeah.
pushing out the bad
Yeah,
stuff,
sure.
and not wanting to let people even know what good things people are doing out there. And things like this can actually motivate and set up people to do more and be better. That's the whole essence.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the question is actually if you are going to Chapa or you're going to stay.
Yeah, so this is the question I'm going to say this. I guess you'll have to keep your fingers crossed and see when it happens. You would know. I'm keeping an open mind. But like I said, when it happens, you will know.
Okay, we should be watching.
You're watching.
Okay.
So yes,
All
yes,
right.
yes. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much once again. God bless you.